again. Thank you for staying for this great breakout session on workforce attraction and retention strategies. I want to bring back to the stage Ben Winchester, who is going to introduce the panel. Please enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Welcome back after your mini break. This is our workforce retention, attraction and retention strategies panel. We've got some really great folks here to share ideas around what they do in their day-to-day work and how they envision this going when it comes to workforce attraction. So as I had mentioned, we've got a very tight labor market. We've just started this very tight labor market. It's only going to get worse. And really, when we are starting to welcome in new employees into our town, we are more importantly welcoming in new residents. And so better understanding the dynamics of people work kind of is important for us. So we've got some really great panelists here. Eric Osberg is a Rural Rebound Initiative Coordinator from Otter Tail County. Janelle Klinke is a People and Brand Officer with Goldmark Property Managers. Liz Heisley is the Executive Director of the Rugby Job Development Authority and the city's Economic Development Coordinator. And Pat Perdignali is the Vice President of Human Resources with MBI Energy Services. So hand for you folks coming in today. Thanks. So we're just going to start out by having them introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their work and maybe some key strategies around your work in recruitment and retention. So we'll start here on this end with Eric.
Once again, my name is Eric Osberg, and I am the Rural Rebound Initiative Coordinator for Otter Tail County in Minnesota. And some of the key strategies that we try to use, it looks a lot more like marketing than it does like rural recruitment or economic development or anything like that. It's a macro level approach. Whenever I'm with my team and we're deciding what should we do, I ask, well, what would Ben Winchester do, right? Knowing what Ben Winchester knows, what should we do? And so it's a lot of marketing, it's a lot of messaging, and just trying to put Otter Tail County, Minnesota on the map when it comes to rural rebounders, people in those 30 to 49-year-olds looking for a place to relocate to.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Janelle Klinke, and I'm the Chief People and Brand Officer for Goldmark Property Management. Prior to that, I was in healthcare and senior living and have spent most of my career in Minnesota and North Dakota. And Eric, you're right. Human resource professionals and marketing are using very much the same strategies. And I think that's what you'll hear today. We'll be talking about a lot of different things, and I think you'll see that. But I do have some of my key strategies are, and I wrote them down because I think they're that important. The first one is know yourself, get really good at curating a strong employee value proposition. And why would you do that? You have to tell your story and speak to the people that you want to. Number two, go digital, be social. You really have to be out there. We're all carrying around, right, those computers, and so you have to be talking to people where they're at. Number three, if you hire someone, treat them well, treat them like family. Many people who work with me hear me say this frequently, and that is if we hire people, we take care of them. Number four, spend enough time defining what you need and the culture fit you seek before you start advertising. Makes sense, doesn't it? You wouldn't want to advertise for just a motorized vehicle when you really want a John Deere tractor. So really get focused on your defining what you want. Number five, create a work environment and culture that values connections and relationships. And that really has to start at the top. That doesn't matter. It doesn't mean if you're a town or an employer or if you're large or you're small. All of these strategies apply. And my last one is just get really creative and use your partnerships. I think some of the greatest things that we've been able to accomplish have been through our partnerships. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Heisey, and I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for Rugby and also the Job Development Authority Executive Director. My role is a little bit different. I do community and economic development, which is pretty broad. I'm a staff member of one. Our community is about 2,700 right now. And I guess one of my key strategies, of course, is promoting community engagement and working on the narrative. You know, we have a wonderful community, and we have a lot of different strategies that we try, all of the above, I guess. So we do a lot of strategic planning and reaching out to the community and a lot of finding out, trying to figure out what works best is, quite the challenge, but we do that through our partnerships. We rely heavily on community organizations and businesses, and we talk a lot with what their needs are. And, recently we did a community job fair. We aren't just trying to promote, find people to fill the jobs. We're trying to find people that, that will fit. Well, we want everybody to fit in our community, but my job is pretty diverse. So we're not just attracting, a truck driver or a teacher or, we're all of the above. So I guess that's all I have to say.
My name is Pat Bergnoli with MBI Energy Services. I'm the Vice President of the organization for Human Resources. I would say my primary job is really to help people fulfill their dreams. I'm originally from Montana. I spent 22 years with UPS, got recruited out to North Dakota, and the company that I went to work for when I came out here flew their private jet into Helena, Montana, picked me up and wined and dined me, and I thought I could get used to this. And anyway, they flew me into Watford City, and I got to meet some of the locals and the community members and some of the employees of the organization I was going to go work for. And I'll be honest, that community made me feel welcome, special, and important, and they sold me on the opportunity to come to North Dakota. So as an HR professional, my goal is to emulate what I felt when I came here. So from a strategic standpoint, some things that we're working on. Number one, calibrating the management team in a high-growth business like oil and gas. I share the story. I brought all the management team at MBI. I've only been there for a year, but I asked them if they thought NDSU had a hard time recruiting great players to their team. And they fell for my trap, and they, of course, said great coaching, culture of winning, an attitude of winning, all that stuff. And I asked them after that exercise, I said, so my next question to you is, do people want to play for your MBI team? And if not, why? You just told me what it looked like. And then there's also a piece about calibrating the employees and letting them know what it looks like to be successful. And I use words that aren't mine. I use the front lines words, and basically what they've said, our top performers that allow them to be successful is work hard, be accountable, and treat people the right way. And then the big piece of the strategy is these people that I got coming to North Dakota don't necessarily see North Dakota as their destination. So we've got a program where we're helping them integrate into the communities to include helping their family members find jobs, and we're also aligning with the schools on some different things, and I hope I get the opportunity to talk about that today. And thank you for allowing me to be here today.
So the first question I've got is related to the presentation you've just heard. In what ways does the rural narrative impact your work? Are there things that you do or that you could be doing to help kind of flip the script, in a sense, about rural life in small towns? We'll start with you, Pat.
I think, I guess the way I would answer that is economic development is super critical to me in my role, and the Chamber of Commerce is. But I would say, to flip the script, I would say just being aware of the opportunities that are out there. And I'll just tell you, in my role, I come across petroleum engineers, I come across plumbers, I come across all these different people. And so how I'm trying to drive changing that script is, I'm going to use Marv in Watford City, North Dakota. He's got titanium plumbing, and I said, Marv, how do you feel about mentoring a high school student? And so he's going to get into this cooperative work experience next year and start training our future workforce. And then also, to change the narrative, I will tell you that what I've learned is that these kids in North Dakota are having an amazing experience. So we're leveraging the Watford City High School Student Council. We call them our ambassadors, and they are in position to talk to our out-of-state applicants, their family members, to share their journey and their experience, so that if they do choose to move their families to North Dakota, they'll have a friend before they even get here. So these kids are very excited that they're involved, but I would say that changing the narrative from that standpoint is getting our youth involved and being part of the solution.
Yeah, I guess what we're doing to flip the script in rugby, we're, I guess, focusing, a lot of time you hear like we have 2.5 unemployment, so we want to change that to we have 97.5 workforce participation. We have wonderful values in our community, so that's one of our key ones that we're trying to get away from, because a lot of people, we've heard from employers and people in our community that, people just don't want to work. But the fact is we just don't have enough people in our workforce. So we have very hardworking, good, high values in our community, and we are very welcoming in our community. So I guess that's one of our key things that we're flipping the script on.
Lots of microphones. And it's hard to see, so if I drop it, sorry. So flipping the script, if you will, is very, I think, in line with what organizations are trying to do too, and that is connect with people and be able to tell your story. And more than ever, our millennials and Gen Zs are looking for purpose. And so all of your communities have something to offer, and so it's being able to reach out and tell your story and make connections, and you'll do that through partnerships. And the other thing is, I don't know if everyone was at yesterday's young lady who spoke towards the end of the day, and I apologize if I say her name wrong, G. Anyway, she was amazing, and I would probably hire her as the second mayor.
So as far as the rural narrative goes, that's what I do all day, every day, seems like 365 days a year. And to Janelle's point, I use digital platforms. We use Facebook, we use Twitter, we use Instagram, we use YouTube, we use the web. And it's an ongoing daily activity. And I'll be presenting later in that room over there to kind of get more deep into the weeds about exactly how we do it. But the way that I describe it is, there's a difference between producing content and documenting what's going on. And so my job is on a daily basis is to document all of the good things that are happening that would put the rural narrative in a positive light. And then, once again, we use digital social platforms to try to, we're trying to flood the market with, we're trying to beat that drum on a daily basis to try to change that narrative, and not necessarily change what other people are saying, but just try to amplify the good. You know, I can't control what others say, so if we can just say it louder and more often, maybe they'll think that rural isn't as bad as they once thought it was.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to just build on a little bit about this, around the diversity of the younger generation too, and especially millennials. I think millennials get a bad rap, right? You know, in a different presentation, I will talk about millennials, and that whenever we use words like entitled or lazy, because our workforce is short, and because we can't find people filling those jobs, we tend to cast these disparaging remarks upon the younger generation that they don't want these jobs, they're lazy, when in fact the people can't even find a place to live in your town. So I think when we see some of the outcomes of the labor shortage, we attribute it to a generational difference, which I will advocate for you to never use the word entitled or lazy or anything like that again. Like, I'm in Gen X, nobody cares about me. I'm in between the baby boomers and the millennials. But I'll remind you all baby boomers that you were all called lazy too. And how did that feel, right? And we're doing the same thing. So now, my question for you is, as we become more diverse, what would you say to other organizations or businesses in the field that are working in this field? We'll start here, Eric.
I think the only constant is change, I guess is what I would say. I agree with Ben. Millennials, sometimes the work that they're doing looks like play. Sometimes the work that I do looks like play. A lot of people don't think I work, but what I'm doing, and I'm literally like, and we all do this, right? Sometimes work looks like play. So the advice that I would give is with the diversity that's coming, is just understand that change is the only constant. We were talking about my efforts in Otter Tail County, and we're trying to grow. And one of the common responses I get is, well, I hope Otter Tail County doesn't change. Well, that's inevitable. Change is inevitable. It's going to evolve. Things evolve. And I've even had one mayor ask me, why do we need to grow? Well, what's the alternative of growing? So again, it's about creating a mindset to be open to new ideas, to be open to new technologies, to be open. Back to the millennials, there's a process-orientated work and there's a results-orientated work. I've had millennials work for me, and they're very good at getting results if you give them the freedom to have input or control into the process. And so that would be my advice, is just change is the only constant, and you got to have an open mind.
For me, I'm a chief people officer, and so I'm thinking about diversity and inclusion all the time. Matter of fact, in 2020, that's one of our top priorities, is learning what we need to do to show our commitment to diversity and inclusion. And when we think about people moving into your communities, when you think about diversity, well, I'm old and I'm a woman, so I'm diverse. But there's also 75% of employees are saying that they're going to work past retirement age. So that's 75% people who say they're going to work past 67 years old. And that will impact your community or your organization as well. And so start now today thinking about how can you become more inclusive. How can you invite people to the dance and then ask them to dance as well?
What I would start off saying is the more perspectives, the stronger that we'll be as a community. And all of that, just building upon all these perspectives, they build our community. And if you look back in the last century when they had 60,000 Germans from Russia come to North Dakota, look at all those perspectives that came with them. And we have Scandinavian heritage, and it's just wonderful to see all of this. And then of course we have so many new people coming into North Dakota. It's all these ideas, and you see this with the Main Street Initiative, and a lot of Governor Burgum's team, and it's wonderful to see how all of this is enhancing our community, and they should, I hope everyone embraces it, and it just makes our community stronger.
We've got kind of a new member to our HR team who's a millennial, and she had shared a text message with me that she had sent to somebody that we both know, and it was how she described her boss, our HR director, Chris. And in that text message, she said that my boss is very adamant about mental health, and if we ever get overwhelmed, she'll help with interviews. I never feel job scared here, super supportive, and so that's what I think in terms of millennials, how that leadership team should be described, and our mission on our HR team is to stay ahead of her and keep that pinball bouncing her head. So she's doing a wonderful job, and the other thing about the diversity, I would say I'm in a really good position. We're drafting people from all cultures, and probably one of my favorite things that I would share here is in helping one of our new drivers, his wife, Giselle. I tell them I'll help you find a job. I won't promise I'll find you a job, but Patrick takes me up on that. His wife's name is Giselle, and I talked to Giselle, and I said, Giselle, what are you looking for? And she said, well, something administrative or maybe office type. And I said, well, I'm looking at your resume, and I have another plan for you. She's got a degree in economic finance, and she's a certified tutor, so she's now got her new job at the high school. And, I always say that influence is the highest form of human skill. And for us to get Giselle into that high school and be able to share that culture and that type of stuff, I think our students are going to be benefit and just amazing things with that.
I think the relationship between employers and community has always been a very tight relationship. And, when we see changes in the community, it impacts the employers. When we changes in the employers, it impacts the community. What's your view on the relationship between the two? And when changes happen in the community, what can you help do to ameliorate that? Or, what can employers ultimately do to contribute to community retention and recruitment activities? We'll start on this end, Eric.
Be creative, I guess, is the first thing. There's a number of places in Otter Tail County. Childcare is a concern. There's not enough childcare to go around, right? And so and I'm sure this is happening here too. But there's a lot of businesses that'll offer on-site childcare. So some of the things that the business community can do is to be creative and come up with solutions to problems. The other thing that Pat used a football analogy earlier. I'm a football fan. I'm a Gopher fan. I'm sorry. I'm from Minnesota, so PJ Fleck. I don't know if you guys have heard the whole row the boat thing, but I would say employers can row the boat. They can get on board. they can amplify that. Whatever your rural narrative is, they can amplify that. And Janelle has talked about, and this will be a segue to Janelle, but she introduced me to the terminology of passive recruitment versus active recruitment. And with that, I'll let Janelle explain if that's appropriate.
Well, that's a segue. Well, it does wrap around your recruiting or your strategies, but I must start from the experience first. And so I always think about everybody's experience. When I was thinking about being on this panel, I was thinking about what will the audience want to experience? What do you need to hear? And so when you're thinking about somebody new to your community, a visitor, maybe somebody's coming in to interview at one of your your organizations, it should be a team effort. You should all be thinking about how can we make that experience the best it can be. That interview should be like a marketing event. You are marketing, even in my small world, that interview, I train interviewers all the time. It is a marketing experience. You sell us, you talk about our culture, what it is like to belong to our organization, what it looks like to be an employee, and that marketing experience leaves them walking away saying, I sure hope I get chosen. And even if they don't get chosen, they had such a great experience that it's positive for you. And that's the same with communities. And so that's just be thinking about the experience on all levels and be partners throughout it. And just a comment on the recruiting. So passive recruiting has been gone for probably 12 years or more. HR professionals, recruiters, we know that we have to be out there doing active recruiting. So back to my key strategies, you have to know what you want, what you're looking for, what type of people you're looking for. And once you know that, you have to go digital. You have to go to that computer that's in their hand. You have to go where they're at, where they're hanging out, what they're reading. Just taking out an ad or doing something passive just doesn't work anymore, because your next talent is already working, right? So the unemployment rate is so low that if we're doing passive recruiting, those are the only people who are seeing those call to actions. But if we're doing digital or more active sourcing, we're going to where the talent is, and that's probably at another organization. More than likely, that talent is there. So get your story right and reach out to them. I can't say it enough to be as organized as you can, because that talent may look up from their desk, the job that they like already, and say, wow, I might want to try out that organization, or I might want to try out that community.
Yeah, what we try to do in our community is form a network of support between employers and the community. And I would encourage business owners to meet with the city council, meet with the park board, meet with the county and other organizations, meet with your chamber of commerce. Those partnerships are really important when you're trying to recruit people to your community. And it's more about recruiting people and so it can't, I know, I don't want to be offensive to anyone, but I think sometimes employers are just focused on, their business. And in reality, you're not just recruiting them to the job, you're recruiting them to the community. So, and we want them here, and it's nice to know that, they're not just coming to work for you, they're coming to live in the community and work and play. So that's my...
The one thing I'd say about recruiting is at MBI we've had over 15,000 applications this year, and we obviously haven't hired those 15,000 people, all 15,000, but that group, I think we have the opportunity to help each other too, so we've classed up our rejection letter. So if they're not a fit for us, we educate and redirect. So jobsnd.com, or if you want to get your CDL, here's where you go. If you want to get work over a gig experience, here's where you go. So we've had some positive responses from the people that we've rejected because we've given them guidance. But as far as community partnership, that's super critical to me, and some of you have heard my Luis story, and I'll just share it with you real quick. It's a 2-minute story, but when I first got to MBI, I met Luis, and he's a mechanic for us, and I asked him if he was having a good experience, and he said yes. I told him to tell me about his family. He's got a wife and 3 kids, and I asked if his wife was having a good experience, and he said no. And I said, excuse me? And he said that she doesn't like the cold. And I said, I can't fix cold, Luis, but I asked him if she's integrating into the community, and he said no, she's shy. And I said, well, I've got a community partner named Shiloh Chavez. She can help your wife integrate into mothers of preschool children. So we exchanged that information, and I followed up with Luis 2 weeks later, and I said, has your wife contacted Shiloh yet? And he said no. And I said, time's up. Give me your wife's phone number. I'm going to have Shiloh call her. And anyway, that same day, he was floating by my office, and he goes, do you got a minute? And I said, yeah, I got a minute. What's going on? He goes, well, my wife's out here. I want to introduce you. So he takes me outside to introduce me to his wife, Yuri. And I said, Yuri, I'm sure your husband told you I got your phone number, and I'm sending it off to Shiloh to help you integrate in the community. I said, if you don't mind, I'd like to make something crystal clear to you, Yuri. I want you to know that you and your children are just as important to us as your husband, Luis. He does a great job for us. We want to keep him, and if that means helping you integrate in the community, count us in. If you should find that this mothers of preschool children is not your thing, let me know. I've got other resources. So I followed up with Luis about a month later, and I said, Luis, how's the family? And he said, Pat, he said, they're doing great. He said, my wife got a job. I said, that's awesome. Does she like it? He goes, she loves it. And I said, well, wait a minute, Luis, what'd you do with the kids? He told me that his wife's mom came to North Dakota from Indonesia to watch the kids so that he and his wife could pursue the American dream in the great state of North Dakota. And on top of that, we delivered a 1-2 knockout punch to Luis. We're mentoring a high school kid to be a mechanic. We're going to turn this kid into a superstar in 1 year. But Luis is part of that mentor program, so we've given him a purpose. So I know this is not proper English, but I will say this, that even though it's cold here, Luis and his wife, Yuri, ain't leaving North Dakota.
So in just a few minutes, you'll have an opportunity to ask your own questions. So just think about questions you may have for the panel here. So aside from the cold, what are other hurdles that you encounter in your work with regards to bringing in new people to either your businesses or your communities? Well, Patrick, we'll just continue on your cold there.
I'm thinking, for me, it's really important that our North Dakota base is having a good experience. I tell a story, I spoke on Tuesday, but at one point I got a list of 25 drivers that had used to work for this organization I was with before I was at MBI, and the manager said, hey, Pat, go after these guys. If you can get them back here, I'd take them. I said, I'm on it. So I called these 25 people, and I left them messages. Hey, I'm the new HR guy here. Hey, let me know if you're interested in coming back out. And what I found ironic is that those people didn't call me back. They called the drivers in Tioga, and they said, who's this Pat guy? Are you happy? Is it real? Would you recommend that I come back? And at that juncture, that was a major epiphany for me. And that's really where that community partnership came into play for me, is that if our base isn't having a good experience, we have absolutely no chance of growing it out here. So we have to encourage those people to have a good experience, and I think I forgot the question.
Hurdles.
Hurdles. Hurdles, I would say just, I'll just give you an example. I go to Dickinson every Friday, and I talk to every one of our new hires, and I give them a presentation a little bit about my own experience, and I'm not going to sell you on something I haven't done myself, but I ask every one of them, so when I'm done with my presentation, I'm going to ask you, how'd you find us, where are you from, and are you moving your family here? And the hurdles, I would say, is just their perception of North Dakota, and I just love it when they say, you ain't getting my wife out here, and I'm like, well, with that attitude, you're right. And I'll ask them, what'd your wife do? Well, she's a nurse. I'm like, dude, it's like one of the top positions that we're looking for, and I will take your wife on a magic carpet ride if you get her out here. And I always tell them, too, that I'm afraid of no one over the phone, so I will talk to your wife if that's what it takes. But I would say the hurdles are people's perception of North Dakota, and I tell them right to their face that I am going to outfox you. Just beware.
Okay. I think a lot of some of the hurdles that we face in our community, when I worked at City Hall, I was city auditor for a while, the number one question would be, what is there for the kids to do? And we've been working hard, and there's a lot of support in the community to add more amenities. So that's probably one of our biggest hurdles. But we do try to focus on, we do have a lot of outdoor activities. Our school district is phenomenal. So they've been doing more and more activities. There's definitely, and then our village arts, we have an arts group, and they're doing a phenomenal job. So, but I guess we have just the community engagement and trying to meet together as often as possible and find common solutions, and I guess realizing our limitations and then finding ways to find solutions together as a community. So.
I would say that some of the biggest hurdles that we face in our efforts is time is probably our number one hurdle. There's so many things to do, and there's so many different ways to do it. Just trying, and it's pretty easy to get distracted. So one of the things that we try to do is to develop some time management tools as far as our messaging goes. You know, how often are we going to do this? How often are we going to do this? How often are we going to do this? So time is, there's 24 hours in a day. But so that's one of the biggest hurdles that we face. The other hurdle that we face is, again, I referenced it a little bit earlier, but I hope this place doesn't change. The resistance to change, the resistance to newness. The next wave of employees might not look like us, right? And so that's a hurdle. And you're just trying to let everybody know that it's in everybody's best interest. It's no matter if we're gonna, if change happens, that's inevitable. But change is in everybody's best interest. And so just trying to manage the time, where are we going to focus our efforts? Hopefully I'm not wasting time. Are we being productive with our time? And can we make sure that everybody's, and to steal the phrase again, everybody's rowing the boat, so.
Yeah, and I don't know if I have a lot to add. I think these are all great examples. I think the biggest hurdle is always ourselves to just get going and get motivated. And I think we're very lucky to be in the state of North Dakota, because there's a lot less variance in North Dakota than in some other states or larger populated areas. So it's very easy for us to get together and talk about what is our standard message? What are we trying to do? The we is so much easier in North Dakota. And I would just say, continue to get together and define what it is and get started telling our story.
Great. One final question I've got for the panel here is, we're really on the retention side. What would you say to new folks just arriving into your community? What would you actually personally say to them about what can they do to help make their experience the best it can be? We'll start.
What would I say to newcomers when they come to town? The first thing I would do is I would ask questions. We do a thing, we've implemented a program in Otter Tail County, we call it Grab-A-Bite. And what Grab-A-Bite is basically we've created, in each community, we have a team of locals, and those locals have a purpose to find a newcomer and take them out for lunch. And heeding Ben's advice, there's a couple of rules. You can't ask them to join anything. You can't ask them to sign up for anything. You can't ask them to buy anything. You're just there to ask open-ended questions and to try to get to know that newcomer. Because as Ben mentioned, when you're new to town, that's difficult. And so what I would say to a newcomer who is in town is, how can we help? I'd ask more questions than I would make statements, I guess, would be my answer to that.
Pat, do you want to go? All right. Well, mine's easy because I go right back to my initial key strategies that I talked about, because they apply to this question very well. And that is, do your due diligence up front. Make sure you know what you want, what you're looking for. Make sure that you're advertising that. Make sure that you're providing a diverse and inclusive environment, whether that's your business or your community. Partner together very well. Make sure that your message is good. And make sure that you're creating this great environment. Think about the experience again. Think about it through their eyes. And make sure that you're thinking about, what is the work environment? What is the community environment? What does it feel like to be here? I think that's really key.
And earlier I said that I tell the employees that are the new hires that I'm going to outfox them. And so some things that I'm kind of encouraging them to do is go explore their communities. And, a lot of times the people that I deal with I'm here to work. So just for example, in Watford City, if we get that person, we're looking at maybe doing some type of a treasure hunt type thing. But if we get that employee from Oklahoma to go to the Rough Rider Center and take a look at that place, huge $100 million facility, and those people are what I can call community partners. But we go have that new employee from Oklahoma go to the Rough Rider Center and get a stamp on there. He's going to do this. He's going to video that event center. He's going to send it back to his wife in Oklahoma, and he's going to say, look at this facility in Watford City, show the kids. And then his wife in Oklahoma is going to post it on social media in Oklahoma, and we're going to turn her into a recruiter. So that's some of the things. But I would say also we're working with the student council in Watford City, and the thing that is different dynamic for us is these people are coming out and they have really no relationships. They have no reason to go to a football game. They have no reason to go to a basketball game. So that's a dynamic that we're trying to change. And so we're working with the student council, and these kids are willing to come to our safety meetings to say, hi, I'm Lydia. I'm originally from Minnesota. I'm going to be a nurse someday, and I'm in position to help you. Get your kids out here if that's what it takes. I'll talk to your high school age son or daughter and share my experience. But in that strategy also, we'll also have those student council members let them know that, hey, we have a basketball game tomorrow night at 7. Like to see you there. So we're going to work on some different strategies to help those folks integrate in the community, and that will have a huge impact on retention. And I will tell you, these high school kids are so freaking excited about helping us integrate our people into the communities they can't see straight.
What we do in our community, I guess would be the first thing we would say is, did you visit our museum, or did you check out our parks, or or did you eat at this or eat at the local restaurant downtown? And the big thing is just listening and starting that conversation, and asking them how they are. So just those simple gestures make a huge difference when you're new in town. And we're very fortunate in North Dakota that people are very friendly. It's not often that not all communities are like that, where you can walk down the street and people, or shake your hand and say, hi, how are you? So we're very fortunate to still have that in our community. And I think just that simple, hello, how are you? And, did you need anything? So that it makes a big difference in that personal touch, and let them know what we have in our community and all the great things. So.
Okay, we've got time for a few questions here. If you do have a question, raise your hand and wait for a microphone. Oh, right. Yep, there's one coming behind you there. Thank you.
Sure. So I'm so happy that we have Otter Tail County here, because I actually am from Dent, Minnesota, which is in Otter Tail County. Yes. But my question isn't for you. My question is for Janelle. Twice you've been in these breakout sessions and have mentioned the statistic of 65% of people who are retiring are going to be continuing into the workforce, right?
75%.
Okay, why? Because my dad retired. My mom was a high school teacher, and she was also a nurse. They owned a restaurant just north of West Silent Lake, big up West Silent Lake. And then they both retired and headed straight to Texas and didn't work. So I'm just wondering if that's more of like a generational difference that you're seeing, or what are you equating to that?
No, I think it's just in the research I've been reading. I'm a kind of a data geek too, even though I'm a people person. I like to know what's happening. I like to be reading and learning all the time, so I'm just generally curious. But it was in the Mercer report, and it was they interviewed existing employees and asked them what their intention was, and 75% of them answered the question with, yes, I plan to work beyond retirement age. And so I don't know if I heard your question correctly, but I have an older brother. He's in his 70s, and he's retired, and they go to Florida every year. So there are those populations that do that. He's much older than I am, though. So for me, I can answer the question myself. I do plan on working past retirement. So I think our generations and those coming up are defining what that is to them. And I think that's what you're seeing in this statistic. Yeah.
I'll just take advantage and step in for 1 second, because this is, I call the policy of best intentions. It's one thing to intend to do something, it's another to actually follow through with it. So while that number is high, we do know there's an AARP study that shows less than 48% of seniors were going to work past the age of 70, but only 3% actually do. So there's they would like to, but essentially they end up in situations like they end up taking care of their mom or their dad, or they end up in all these situations where their intentions do not match up with the actual decisions that get made. So sorry, I'll just pump in there. I think there was a question over on this side. There's one right here.
Good morning, Ann Pollard, General Equipment and Supplies. You guys did a fantastic job. Patrick, you had mentioned other states and people coming in from other states. The rest of you, like when you talk about barriers in North Dakota, we don't have enough people. There's 6,600 kids graduating high school. There's 13,000 leaving higher education, and a lot of those are leaving the state. We don't have enough people. We're fighting for the same talent. So, like I said, Patrick, you shared some strategies, but what strategies are you using that you found success in bringing people from other states? Because I don't want to steal from you find some talent, like you mentioned this individual's wife, and you can immediately find them a job, but how are we as North Dakota going to solve the problem of not having enough people? And do you have any successful strategies that you found?
I think that's a great question, and I'll tell you, we obviously have to get people coming here from other states, but something that you touched on was the schools, and I'll be honest with you, I'm working with Watford City School, I'm trying to get into Killdeer, Dickinson, some of these other schools, and I'll just give you an example. Dickinson, we kind of going over our turnover for one of our rental divisions, and I was talking to the manager, and Sam tells me, he goes, I had to train 3 people how to change a tire. I said, Sam, that's such an easy fix for me. We get into the high school, we work with the ag teachers, and we train those kids how to change a tire, and we hire those people, and we position them for great paying jobs right in our own community, and guess what, Sam? They live here. You know what I mean? So I think that getting into the high schools and, to the football analogy, start positioning our first-round draft picks. And so I think that's a huge thing, and I will tell you that's what I'm most interested in, to be honest with you. I think we do need these folks coming from out of state, but from the commitment side of things, it's very tough. I mean, we do have a lot of people that are committing to this, to North Dakota, but I think just the power of social media and making sure those guys have a good experience, and then they're going to recruit their friends, families, and neighbors to the state is how I would answer that.
Yeah, and for me, you sound like me because I've been saying this for years. Where are the people? I don't have any people. And it can cause a lot of panic when you're working in a growth industry, or even not. But everybody here has to start thinking about how are you going to, provide an answer. Some of it's going to be automation, right? Some of it's going to be technology. Some of it's going to come from something else. But for me, I've had a lot of luck going into the high schools. When we were crying for CNAs and couldn't take on new residents because we didn't have enough caregivers, we went into the high schools and said, this is a career. We'll pay you minimum wage to get trained. We'll train you to become a CNA. You'll start out at $19.50 an hour. You can work part-time, and then we'll help you become an LPN and an RN too. So you have to think that way. So for me at Goldmark now we've created maintenance techs. So there's the groundskeeper, then they can become a Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3. There's property management, career pathing. You really have to think creatively about how you're going to find the people or redesign work. There's a ton of research out there right now about redesigning the work.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think communities really need to control the narrative. When I was in South Dakota, just a state away, I thought North Dakota was just flat and cold. And yeah, and talking to a lot of people that live in North Dakota, there's still a lot of people that even say that about their own state. And I think we really need to highlight all of the great things that we are doing in our community. And we do have great community partnerships. North Dakota isn't that big that we can reach out to the state and other, we have a vast network across the state of other communities, what they're doing, and sharing these resources is really valuable and important, but I guess we're kind of running out of time, but I think that's what I would definitely highlight. We need to highlight all of the strengths of North Dakota and get away from the west side of the state is just a boom town, and that's not true. There's so much more, there's so much opportunity, and we have great resources, recreation and just great family values, and we are welcoming in a lot of our communities, or I guess yeah, moved to North Dakota, so we just need to keep that up.
I'll throw a shameless plug in here. I'll be speaking over there at 10:30, and I won't tell you exactly how North Dakota should try to attract people from other states, but I'll tell you how we're doing it, and we'll get pretty in detail. And I'm not saying it's applicable, but I'll be over there talking about that.
A hand for the panelists here today. Thank you. All right, well, thanks everybody for coming to the session here. Hopefully you gleaned some nuggets of knowledge that you can bring home. I mean, we had some really great people here in terms of knowledge and experience and skills that hopefully you can tap into in the future too. So thank you for your time here today. Again.